Sweet, and we're live. So it's Thomas and Bernard right now. Trying to get Bernard probably up to speed on what I've done in Django. So yeah, if you want to share your screen, we can probably get you set up. I don't know what kind of machine you're using.
I'm on a Mac.
Oh, perfect. Then we can probably get you set up fairly easily. Do you know if you have Python and Django installed already? All right,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, I have those installed.
Sweet. Did you already clone the repo?
Okay. So I don't have the URL to the repo.
Okay, let me go ahead and post that in the chat. Hold on. There's a few things that need to happen though with this as well, because there's some things I'm using Amazon Web Services for a static backend.
Okay.
There's the repo URL.
Yeah.
But Amazon's very good about finding it out in the public. So whenever if you ever decide to commit and merge and whatnot, you're going to have to take out certain elements that I have in my environment. Let me go ahead and share that screen. All right, let's go ahead and change screens. So I'm using what's PyCharm, or what's basically equivalent to RubyMine. JetBrains came out with PyCharm as well. And PyCharm works for Python, Django, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I think we should go ahead and set up your environment first.
Okay. So do I have to share my screen?
If you wouldn't mind.
Okay, sure. Okay. So I just cloned the repo right now.
Okay, so you've already cloned the repo. So what you're going to have to do is install a couple dependencies. Let me bring up the README.
So I want to make a virtual environment for it.
Right. So if you want to make a virtual environment, actually, the Heroku. Let me go ahead and change my screen again.
Okay.
The Heroku site and getting Django set up is actually phenomenal. That's how I did it. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Let's go Heroku Django.
Yeah, actually, I have an idea of setup, so I can do that. Basically, you have a profile and all that. Create a profile, then when you deploy.
Right. So when I deployed deploying to Heroku is actually kind of. It should be set up right now to deploy to Heroku as is. However, if you leave debug mode in true, then you're not going to have to worry about the AWS services. But then if you change debug mode to false, then you are, because Django is set up where you can't serve static files from the project when it's in production. I'm sorry, in deployment. In production, you can. So you might have everything set up. Let's set it up in the virtual environment. So you've got the directory. So when you go into the directory, you can set up your virtual environment. Although there's probably going to be a couple issues doing it. I think I ran into about 50 of them when I set them up. But if you're in the project directory, then you should be able to run the virtual environment via env. If you run into an issue, it'll tell you what you need to install.
Yeah. So I have an idea how to install, also deploy to Heroku. That will not be a challenge for me.
Okay. And then if you want to push to Heroku, it's basically like doing a Rails project per se. But you're going to change basically. So whenever you
Yeah.
make your proc file, you'll change that to Hawaii DOH.
Yeah.
And pip usually doesn't like Max. I don't know why pip is like really bad with Max, but usually easy install works. And the requirements, you don't have to worry about that file because it's already in the project. But what pip freeze does, and this is like the one time that it does do it, is it sort of sets like if this were in Rails, it'd set up all the dependencies that you have or might need for the project into a requirements file.
Yeah, Thomas, actually, I have an idea about this. I can get myself around. It's not my program right now. So I kind of understood those parts.
All right, perfect. Then I guess we can move to what I'm doing, which right now is trying to wrap my brain around some things.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is close that. What I'm trying to do is if I create a certain view, let me go ahead and bring it up. Going between screens sucks. I don't have enough screen real estate. Perfect. There we go. So then, yeah, what I'm trying to do is Roku open. And I'm not running this locally, although I should probably just run my local server. See if I have my environment set up. Yeah, okay. Let me go ahead and run this locally because what I'm using Heroku for is actually for the client to test it out. And the thing with Django, though, is whenever you go to the site, it's weird. I haven't found a way to get around it, but you've got to add stuff to the URL to actually get to the site you want to go to.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll start. There, we're good. All right, so when you get your environment set up, there should be data in there that you can test with if you do it locally or on Heroku. Of course, I typed it wrong.
This is a Django default user authentication system, I assume.
Django does have a default user system. I kind of try to enhance it, which I'm retarded for trying to do so.
Okay.
Why I did that? I don't know why it's not working. But it's kind of a mix between the user model that I created and the Django's authentication system.
Okay.
The smarter me would make it so that we just use the Django authentication system. However, there's data that needs to get tweaked every once in a while, and the biggest components to the authentication system is just being able to log in properly. I also need to add errors and whatnot, like when I didn't log in, saying, hey, this stuff doesn't work. And I don't know what the issue with the AWS static server is because all the JavaScript and CSS is all coming from the server, so I'm getting it. However, the pictures are not coming up well. But for instance, so what I need to work on actually, or maybe get help with, is these reports. So I'm viewing this as the administrator for the Department of Health.
Yeah.
So I think what I need to do is create this view so that it's only reports that are dated from X to Y, depending on what reporting cycle they're in. Which if I click on this one, it'll show me everything, right? There's another bug in here that needs to get fixed. So if I go back to the view reports, so there's a test input that's in here. If I go back to the most current one and go to test input and then update as information, what ends up happening is that the past report gets updated too, which I don't want to happen. And so what I was thinking about doing is probably creating another model that's basically a clone of past reports.
Okay.
But I ended up having issues with that. I don't know how well you know Python, but it's very, very simple, high-level language.
Yeah.
Django import. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to say I have a very good idea of Python, you know.
Okay, so you're just getting into Django.
Yeah, sure.
More or less. What can I say that could probably teach you about Django? Django's authentication system is actually pretty spot on, and there's not much that I could write that would be better than it.
Yeah.
As far as writing views in Django, usually the way it'll work is when you start a project, you're always going to get a manage.py file and then the folder that's also going to be the name of the project, and that's where you're going to get your settings, your init, your URLs and whatnot. And in the settings, usually, if you want to make decent views and whatnot, is you'll modify your templates. And usually this line right here is all you need. And so what it does is
I fairly understand them.
Sweet. And then as far as writing views at all, it's fairly simple.
Yeah, so I feel understand the settings.py file. Like I understand what everything is supposed to be doing and all that. It looks pretty much understandable. So what I want to understand first, I want to understand like how you're able to create your custom user registration and also login. Like
Sure,
you know, because I think Django comes with something similar, but I don't know about if you can register someone online. Normally, you can do the create super user from the command prompt and you create that. But I haven't seen any like so for me just to once I get an idea how it works, I think I probably contribute something else with it.
Right. So what I did was because initially this project was going to be done in Groovy, but Groovy was goofing up everybody's machine. So we moved over to Django, and I created these models specifically for basically like this right here. This right here is yeah, this is the register user, but this whole model right here is covered in the authentication system, so it's kind of redundant.
Yeah.
What I need to do actually is probably extend the user authentication to include these, which I think first name and last name and all that's in there. Let me check the docs. Django authentication.
You know, like the model you created, I think the Django user model comes with those fields too.
Right, it comes with a bunch of them already. So, like, what I did was absolutely nothing phenomenal except for put multiple things in multiple places, which is kind of not very smart per se.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it has username, first name, last name, email, password.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have to tweak the groups and user permissions as well. Reason being is because I made the role more or less what the authentication is for user permissions and groups. And I just, at the time when I made this, just kind of hurry up and put together. I didn't really grasp the full understanding of the Django built-in authentication.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I guess if you do know or can possibly meld these into the Django authentication, then I could probably get rid of this one and this one, and then tweak as need be. So as far as role, the way role works is there's initially there were 3 roles, but now there's 2. And ultimately, the Department of Health is basically the super user for the entire site. So they could do anything they want to the data, basically, that's maintained. Now, for the other user, which would be at the school, what they can do is they can create and they can modify, but they cannot delete anything.
I think Django comes with the groups module too, which does something similar. They can have different groups, and then the user can be part of a group, which determines what the person can do to the other models and all that. So I don't know if
it does, and it's just I didn't really get into looking at what permissions and what groups. Like it'd only be the 2 groups. It'd be the Department of Health and then the school, and then how to do the permissioning for them. But yeah, Django does come with it, absolutely. So I guess I gotta add that to the pivotal tracker then. Do you have the link to the pivotal tracker?
Yeah, I have. I got it from the Slack channel.
Okay. I think I can add you to it as well. Let's go ahead and what's your email address? If you want to put that in the chat real quick. Oh, that's always fun. Let's not put that there. Put that there. Perfect. And then I'll add you to it and then add a story to kind of clean up that. And I just, at this point, I'm working more the functional aspects of the site. All right, I've added you. So let's go ahead and clean models and register to fully utilize Django auth system. Remove or replace redundant fields that are covered. Fields, those classes that come with Django's authentication. Sweet, and we will make that. I don't know if we want to go ahead and give that points yet. And then I'm having issues actually really for basically this information. When I leave it in this method, it's fine. However, I have it in 4 different methods. And it's kind of form dependent, and I think the way I'm passing the form whenever I try to refactor it doesn't really play nicely. And I think what happens is the form gets passed as a tuple, and currently I'm kind of at a standstill because my brain's fried trying to figure out how to do it. I mean, I wonder, because ultimately what I want to do is like, if you look, well, what happens is there's 2 separate forms. One's for preschool students, and then another one's for kindergarten through 12th grade. And so there's information that's in one form that isn't in the other, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So say, for instance, this is the preschool one. Well, if a preschooler doesn't have his NMR1, the preschooler's not going to have their NMR2. So, I mean, right now, it doesn't matter. However, this one right here is only specific to preschoolers.
Yeah.
And then for non-preschoolers, K through 12, this field right here is specific to them because all preschoolers are going to be in preschool. So that's just too easy to say. If they're in preschool, just send them to preschool. And I can work around, like, doing this is actually pretty retarded.
Yeah, I think it's repeated and redundant or something.
Say again?
I mean, like having just one field being the difference between the two functions, maybe it could make sense to probably have it in one single function or something.
Maybe I looked into mixins, don't quite fully understand them. Some with Django form mixins. Like, I basically learned what I know about Django now in the last, I guess, 2 months.
You've been doing Django for just 2 months, eh?
Yeah, I've only been doing Django for 2 months, and so I've only been doing Python for 2 months as well.
Wow, that's very cool.
It's kind of out of necessity because a funny story about the project is it started off as a class project, but the Department of Health was blown away, so they kind of want to see it through.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to do the project in PHP, and so we split into 2 teams. And so one team did it strictly in PHP, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do it in PHP. Let me do it in another framework. And my background's in Java, so I'm like, maybe I could do it in Groovy and Rails. That didn't work out, so I'm like, looks like Django or Python's the next best, because I don't know if I really could have taught a bunch of people Rails really quick. I mean, it was a 6-person team. But yeah, I mean, I don't quite fully understand mixins, but I'm assuming it probably end up being a form mixin. I don't want 1.9, I want 1.8. I guess I could try that.
Sorry?
I guess I could try doing the mixin.
I didn't get that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I could try using a mixin because it looks like it might actually work.
Yeah.
Using form mixin. Like, hopefully the idea is when this is done in June, they have to call me for very little. Like, I was looking at it and trying to figure out how to do it before. But see, the thing is, I don't have a lot of class-based views.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't have a lot of init methods either. Because for most of it, there's no real requirement, I guess. Like, I hard coded a lot of it. Let's see, that's a list view. Using form mixing, think that, use single object, I don't know. It's not really a model form. Process form view. Like, I really don't know how to use a mixin. I mean, I can make the method right now and it wouldn't work. Because the pertinent information for the method is the student, which if the student doesn't exist, then the get a create works just fine. The report, the facility, and then to know whether it's a create or a update. But the way it's set right now is not very dry.
See, if someone tell you to buy an iPhone 5 for 40K, will you buy iPhone 5 for 40K? 32 gig. Why? Yeah, for 2 gig. Yeah. 32 gig or whatever. No, it's person said they bought a new one and they want to sell the one he has.
Yeah, I'm interested. Me personally, I'm interested.
You're giving me minimum money now. You give me minimum fee. Agent fee, broker fee. You're giving me broker fee now.
How much is that?
Okay. 10% times 2 years.
What one is it?
White. That's why I don't. That's what I don't like about. Yeah, I like black. Huh?
Oh. Like, just a picture of here.
No, I'm just learning something from this guy. Like I saw it up where this actually.
Closed caption. Anybody from Williams? Oh, where did he go to? Oh, what's it called? They are CDS. Okay.
Well, that's not a good sign. That's never a good sign. Oh no, this isn't good. Okay. Maybe I'm not going to do this for now.
Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
I am all right, and yourself?
I'm fine also. I just have a meetup also with the people of the job.
That's good. I mean, Sam said that you'd gotten a job and whatnot, and you're working extensively with Python. I just learned it in the last couple months, so
Yeah,
so I don't know if you have the environment set up. I think what we should do is probably set you up.
I don't. Well, you mean about setup following the video you just post in the Slack? Oh no.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we could probably get you set up, and if you can contribute anytime, that'd be great. If not, no worries.
Yeah, I will try to do all this so either in the lunch or in the evening. I will try to set up everything. And yes, probably will be more about the weekend. So, but I will try to collaborate. I will like it.
Yeah, that's fine. Biggest thing, especially the one that Sam and I ran into, is making sure all the dependencies are installed. If you have Python and Django installed, then it's just installing the other dependencies, which I think there are 4 of them that we needed. Yeah, 4 of them. And it depends on your machine too. Like, what kind of operating system are you running?
I am in Mac OS X.
Oh, perfect then. Usually, I don't know why pip and Mac OS X don't get along, but easy install will work for any of the packages that are needed. And then if you want, you can fork the repo off the Agile Ventures site and then clone that to your machine.
Okay.
And then I can add you to the Pivotal Tracker as well if you want.
Yes, that would be cool.
Sure. Can you post your email address on the chat, please?
Okay.
I don't know why I just did that. Yeah, it's like 12:30 in the morning here.
Wow.
I'm kind of a night owl though, so
You're used to.
I tend to do my best work in the middle of the night.
That's cool. At least I hope you wake up late.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of been like that. And on top of that, I got to write a paper on big data to do tomorrow. So
Oh.
that should be fun. I do have an instance running on Heroku, but that's more for the Department of Health to test out so they could test it from anywhere. What I've been doing is running local tests on my machine to see if it works or not before I push up to Heroku.
All right. So we are doing tests, of course, isn't it?
So
We do also the tests, the BTT and TDD.
right. I should, but I haven't really. Most of the tests that should be automated, I've just kind of been doing myself. Like in Rails, they have Cucumber. In Django, they have Lettuce, and it works pretty much the same, except I haven't written any. It would be great if we can get some going.
Yeah, I have no idea, I have to say, about how to test in Django. I mean, or Python, actually.
I think, like, I haven't done it extensively, and I think when it gets to a point where it's comfortable enough where I could probably take a week or two to understand how to get the TDD and BDD working in Django and Python. I could probably do a quick crash course and then maybe get everyone else up to speed. But Django does have something similar to Cucumber, and it's called Lettuce, and basically writing the features and the steps are almost identical, as if though they were in Ruby, except just written in Python.
Okay. I will need to refresh my mind also because since I started this job, because I don't have to do it, I forget a bit about it. But hopefully I catch up soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've done that. I think I took Sam's class a year and a half ago.
Well, yes, well, not that long, but same here, more or less.
Yeah, so I gotta kind of refresh my memory on the steps to writing tests and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me add you to the Pivotal Tracker. Can I get your email address?
T8.
T8?
Yeah. No, A. So,
A.
yeah. And then at gmail.com.
There you are.
Okay.
Perfect. So now you're added to the tracker. I mean, there's not a lot of stories to work on per se. I've worked on a few of them. And then I was talking with Bernard about Django's authentication system, which is written very well, but I didn't utilize it fully because there were things that I needed, and so kind of going back and fully trying to understand how the authentication system works and how I can utilize it to minimize redundancies in the database, basically.
Okay. Well, I don't know much about it, to be honest, so I will have to have a look and do a bit of research.
Yeah, that's fine. For me personally, I kind of just learned the entire framework in the last 2 months, and I don't fully understand it.
Okay.
But I've understood it enough to get a project up and running. So, I can give you a quick breakdown. Let me go ahead and show you what I do have running. Let me see if my local instance is still up. Sure is. Sweet. So basically what this is the Department of Health here is trying to track students that are 12th grade and below that aren't current on their vaccinations. So what I've done so far, and then what I'm trying to get to is basically, so there's a reporting system that allows a facility to input students that are missing vaccines, and depending on whether they're in preschool or not, dictates what vaccines are really important. They've got the ability to create a facility, generate a CSV that'll give them every student that's missing vaccines in the state. They wanted a filter function, and so I built a filter function. So basically, I guess I can do a quick rundown. Let's confirm that. I've also got to add stuff like if this doesn't work, like this shouldn't work. Having it pop up with a message saying credentials don't match or whatnot.
Okay.
So then, as a school health aid administrator, I want to be able to add students that I need to add. So we'll say, for instance, this took a while to do, but these 4 students are still current in my school. And so when I go to create a new form, we'll go add 2, add 1 person.
Well, it's done a lot of things.
Yeah, it's so the pertinent information really is, and then the way the form works is that date of birth, first name, last name, grade, entry date, and then what they're missing is really what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Person 2. And then I've written the logic in so that if a student is missing, say, the hepatitis B, the first dose, then they're not going to have the second or third dose probably. So it's written in there that if they're missing the first dose and the health aide doesn't put the rest, it'll automatically do it.
Okay.
So when I go to submit and then I go to view reports, I'll see that I have add person 2 and 1 and 2. And then I see that, okay, they're missing the first 3 Hep Bs and then the 2 MMRs. And then I can also edit them from here. So I'm like, oh, wait, no, I got their updated health record, so they're only missing number 3. And so it'll automatically update as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can remove students from any report. And they can also remove students from their school as well. So like we'll go to add person 2. And we'll make him a medical exemption. TB passed positive. And then you'll see that this student's a pass positive. He's got notes saying something about him being a medical exemption or whatnot. I've added the functionality that because there's reporting periods, and so the Department of Health wants to be able to say, okay, well, they're not compliant yet. So I want to be able to say, no, you can't turn it in anymore. You have to call me directly. So right now, there's a confirm button, which tells the Department of Health that they've confirmed and they're compliant. So we'll say, for instance, that they don't want to, or that they're overdue. And so they haven't hit confirm yet, and the Department of Health wants to make sure that they call them to make sure all the information is inputted properly at that point. So now if I go to view report, the report's still open, but they can no longer confirm it as a user.
Okay.
So I've added that functionality. There's other things that I need to do, which is of these reports, I don't need to see all of them. I just need to see the last 3, which I think I put in the pivotal tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe little things here and there, like refactoring and whatnot. So if you want to comb through the code and look at things and be like, hey, this is information that's elsewhere, so we don't need it in 2 spots. Because right now it's not very dry. And like I was telling Bernard, my biggest issue right now is, so this form right here is creation of a preschool student. And so you see all this here. Well, what's bugging me is that it's also here. And for the life of me, I can't figure out how to pass it, like pass the actual form to another method so that I could just write one method and update all of them as need be based off of what they are. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I will need to have a look.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really found anything, and I've been scouring the internet for the last about hour or so trying to figure out a way to do it. Because I keep running into tuple errors for the form, and I think it's because it's not passing the actual form and all its data, and I think that's in the post from the HTTP. I think, let me check real quick, that the current repo, once you get all the dependencies installed, should be good enough to work on your local machine, because what Django doesn't do is that when it's in deployment, it won't serve static files from the project itself. So the static files have to get hosted elsewhere. And I've got an instance on Amazon that's hosting it. However, I can't leave it on GitHub because then Amazon will keep calling me and saying, hey, change your stuff because it's public and someone's going to screw with your stuff. So I'm like, okay, let me do that. But yeah, the actual repo itself that's forked is more or less good enough to go. You might run into an issue with the AWS custom domain. If that happens, just let me know. I'll let you know what the credentials are to bypass that. Here, I'll show you. So like in the settings, you might run into an issue on line 135 about there not being a variable named that. I have the credentials for all that stored on my machine. So if you absolutely need it, then just let me know and then I'll send it to you. And it'll get added basically on line 130. It's 3 lines.
Okay.
But it shouldn't be much of an issue because that's not the folder I want. All the static files that are being used are actually in this folder itself as well. And so when it's in development, it's fine to use a in-app static file. However, when it goes into deployment, Django's like, yeah, don't do that. So
Okay.
So yeah, if you do need the credentials, just let me know. So only 2 people have forked it. As you can see, I've made about 1.5 million commits up until here, fixing small issues here and there. But yeah, and I mean, at this point, it's kind of cleaning up the code, and then as the Department of Health adds more requirements, posting it to the pivotal tracker and whatnot. One of them definitely is if I go to the home page, S3 isn't serving up the pictures properly.
I see.
So I don't know if that's a Django issue, a Python issue, or an Amazon issue, because the pictures are there. I checked. But it's serving up, like, this is a GIF that's in the static file, and it's serving that up fine. So I don't know if maybe it's like, screw you JPEGs, or if it wants it in PNG. It worked fine when I hosted it locally. But not so much now that I'm hosting it with Amazon.
Yes, there must be something in there.
Yeah, and if I go, let's see, if I go to my bucket and see. I should probably throw in a pivotal trackers, adding little messages and whatnot for password creation. There's going to come a point where Amazon wants me to pay money. So, like, the picture that didn't show up is this picture. But the picture's there.
So it's there, so it must be the link.
And I don't know, because I didn't change any of the file names because the header that's up here
is in there.
Is right there. So, like, it's fine in showing that because it's everywhere. Like, it's part of the base, basically the base HTML that dictates all of it. I haven't found anything to really fix that issue. Because it's not just this one, it's actually all of them. like the smiling child. That's the one I just opened. Like this one's, I forget where it is, but it's somewhere and it's not coming up either. So it might be the way that it's linked, maybe.
Yeah, it must be something like that.
But I don't know. And then let me check the PDFs. Because I didn't check the PDFs yet. I probably should have checked that. I think they're fine. So yeah, what these are just PDF links for the actual forms themselves that the Department of Health used to give and track their information with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the PDFs work fine.
Okay, so it's just a picture.
Just the JPEGs.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that one rendered fine. Then let me test B. And B came out just fine too. So yeah, it's just the JPEGs. Which, if I go to landing page, which is where it is. I mean, that's, let me make sure. Well, it's the right file, man. And then if I go to base, the header, where are you? The header is just fine, written the same way. Let me, maybe double quotes? Because that one's in double quotes. Let's see if I try it in double quotes, see if that'll work. Because if that'll work, I might scream. No, putting it in double quotes wasn't it. It's weird.
I guess it doesn't make sense if it's uppercase or lowercase, the GPG.
I don't think so. Like, the good thing is that usually most things in Python are not case sensitive. I mean, some of it is, like if you're doing URL redirecting and whatnot for Django specific, it's kind of case sensitive. Oh yeah, let's change this to email. Email address. So that actually is kind of, the way this is set up is that every person's username is an email address. See, there's another picture that's missing.
Yeah.
And I think what I need to do also is kind of, and I don't know if I want to do this in jQuery or use the Bootstrap, because all CSS on this project's all Bootstrap, but put a little box that says passwords need to contain one uppercase, one lowercase, and one number. Because the way it's currently set up is that if the form isn't proper, so if I just do whatever and then put in a password, well, actually those aren't going to match. If I just put in password all lowercase, then it won't redirect you anywhere. So that means that it didn't work. But if I did put, so we'll go create test at test.com and then put in a legit password, which is just password 1 with a capital P, then it'll take you to user creation or the rest of it. Create new user, 808 555 1234 title, testing, facility. And I guess for this, like this is just a huge list of facilities. And it's going to only get bigger because this isn't even all of them in the state. We'll go with the one I started with, my first school. And then I guess I could just get rid of this altogether because there were 3 different types of roles. Now there's only really 2. The Department of Health said give everybody at the school basically the same access. But the good thing is that until they get verified by the Department of Health, they can't access the system. So they have a manage users tab, and so we see that the user that we just created isn't verified yet. So for instance, you're like, oh yeah, I hit the wrong school. Can you change the school? Okay, we'll change the school and make it Melanika. Then we'll verify and we'll change. And now I can log in.
Okay, so you have to be first giving the permission for the
Right. So the Department of Health actually, so when they initially set this up, they're probably going to be doing a lot of work verifying a lot of people. But for right now, the only way that they can actually log in is if they get verified. And I fixed a little bug that was with the URLs before. I can go to any school by just changing the number. So I changed that so that unless you work at the Department of Health, you can't do that. Oh, but it still doesn't do it properly because that shouldn't be right. Something did change. It's a good thing I checked. Island shouldn't change. Why is Island changing? That's good to see. Means I can write that up. And then at any point, say someone gets fired or changes schools, so we go to create user, and they no longer work there, but they're in the process of changing schools. Then you just unverify them; they can no longer access. They can no longer access the system. But as far as like I was saying before, as far as the bug that still isn't fully fixed, the only people that should be able to change schools willingly by using the URL is just the people at the Department of Health. And so like this is one school, and if they're savvy and they want to check another school, and they just can type in, which they're not going to do, but they can. And before, what was happening was that the user themselves at the school would be able to do that as well. And so they'd be able to update all the information for that school, which they shouldn't be able to do. Well, now that I found that, let's go ahead and try and figure out why that's doing it. It's facility landing, which is on the register. All right, so I sent it F, which is a facility. That's the district. Oh, I didn't change the district. What a dummy. What's the register? District equals that district ID. That's what I didn't do. This isn't very dry either, but it's kind of. Maybe I could change this. So actually this right here is Django's a good way of database parsing. Let's see. Yeah, we're still there. So let's go ahead and and I guess a way or something else I need to add is that when a user is created, they get an email. It's hard to test really the SMTP functionality of Django without a dedicated mail server per se. Like I really don't want to use my Gmail to make it happen. So if we go to 5 is on the big island. Sweet, it didn't change. That's fixed.
Cool.
But as far as like so the role ID, if it's one, they work at the Department of Health. If it's not, then they work at a school. And basically the Department of Health is the super user for the entire system. Now initially, I guess I could. It's not really going to make much of a difference whether or not I don't do it, because the way that this method works is when it gets the redirect, it gets past the ID of the facility, which was that number that we were toying with. And if they're not at the Department of Health, the only facility they should be able to see is their own facility. So I guess maybe what I'm trying to think is if I could take out line 134 and 135 and it not be an issue, except it probably will be. And the reason being is because if they are the Department of Health, then this changes with whatever school that they go to see. And there's going to be about 800 of them that they might go to see.
Listen, I may have to go now, and
okay, that's fine.
I will try to set up everything and start to see the tickets and see what I can. I mean, how much I can work. As I said, I can't do many hours, but I'll try to do as much as is possible.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's perfect. Any help's greatly appreciated, because basically everything that you see I did was just me. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good night.
You have a good one too.
Bye.